I got 5 things down here, John.
Okay, let's hear them.
Top 5 off-season needs, or I guess moves.
Okay.
Maybe let's go with moves, not needs. We'll go with top 5 moves in the offseason, all right? Number 1, making sure you lock up Ruben Niebla to a long-term contract extension.
Okay.
That was asked today by the media to AJ, and of course he did not answer, but there was a lot of, mutual, we're on the same page. He loves San Diego. We're looking to get something done, blah, 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 right? That to me is the first priority because you can actually get that done right now. That can happen like literally tomorrow.
Yeah,
Would you
I mean,
agree?
he's not going anywhere. So that'll be it. Check that box. We'd all be surprised if he wasn't back. Would you agree? You'd be surprised.
I would be shocked. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So check that box. That will be accomplished at some point sooner rather than later. Let's say by the winter meetings.
By the winter meetings.
Yep.
So
he'll be back.
Yeah. And then the second one, we already talked about it. Signing Mike Schill to an extension, line him up with Preller.
Yep.
Lock it in. Everyone on the same page. I am hoping, and I feel good about this. Hope I'm not wrong. I feel like the GM and the manager, they're in lockstep finally. But not only that, it's everybody's on the same page. You don't have the clubhouse, throwing a mutiny against the front office or the manager because the manager is the puppet of the GM. Like, you got the respect from the players for the manager, and everybody's in lockstep. Hopefully that continues, and I think that will continue. And Mike Schill is a guy that now his track record is he's been a manager for 3.5 seasons now, John, in the bigs, and he's made the postseason every single year.
Yeah, which I think is 4 years.
Right. He became the manager halfway through, I want to say 19. And he went 19, 20, 21, got fired 22. All right. So, okay, 4 to 5.
No, he was 41 and 28 in 2018. He was 91 and 71 in 2019. He was 30 and 28 in 2020. He was 90 and 72 in 2021. They did not qualify for the postseason in 2018, despite him going 41 and 28 after taking over. He then took him to the postseason in 19, 20, and 21, and then this team in 24.
Okay. My point is, wherever he's been, he's won. I know they didn't make the postseason in his first year, but he had a winning record. I mean, it's a pretty good record. What was it in 2018?
41 and 28.
That's pretty good. That's a good stretch there. So lock him up. He's a winner. He proved it. I had my reservations about him. I wanted to see it. The Cardinal way. Could he turn that into, the Padres way by making the postseason every year? And he made the postseason this year. That was great. So locking up Mike Schill. What do you think he should get? 2-year contract extension?
No, I think he should get 1 more year.
1 more year. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're going to give him more years than Preller. I don't see why they would do it.
Well, wait.
He's already under control through 2025.
Right.
So give him 1 more year. I mean, who needs to lock up a manager more than 2 full? You know what I mean? Like, do you need to lock him up? Who cares? Yeah. I mean, it does matter, but you get my point. I mean, you're really thinking about 2027 right now. Just give him the vote of confidence is my point. Give him 1 additional year. And then after 2025, give him another year if everything works out, or give him 2 at that point. But I think you give him 1 more year. If you extend him beyond 2026, he now has longer job security than the GM, which to me is odd.
Yeah. And they're not going to, by they, I mean, the front off, Eric Casendo and Grupner, they're not going to be like, well, what happens if you guys fire another manager and then we have to pay this guy however much money like they had to do with Melvin, or at least like the out of getting out, like they wanted to get out from Melvin because they did not want to pay him the $4 million.
True.
Don't have that situation again with Mike Schill. The top number 3 on top needs of the offseason, starting pitching. Would you agree?
Starting pitching is the biggest concern for me, well beyond Mike Schiltz extension or
Well, I'm
Ruben
just looking at
Niebla
like
stay.
checklist things. Like
Okay.
this can
Yeah,
happen
starting
now.
pitching is number
This
one
can
on
happen
field.
now. And then once we get into like off-season hot stove league, that's when the pitching becomes the number one.
Yeah. But here's what I would say too there. I don't think they'll spend a penny to accomplish it by and large. I think it'll either be via trade or it's going to be with internal decisions. The Vasquezes, the Morahones. I think they initially lean internal. I think trades are always a possibility with AJ Preller. I'd be utterly shocked if they went out and spent real money on starting pitching with Musgrove out. This isn't a Blake Snell offseason. This is an Adrian Morahone offseason or a savvy trade, which you can't put past AJ Preller. I would just be very surprised at a free agent starting pitching splash, considering Musgrove's out, but he's not out for forever. He's out for a year.
Yeah, the one name that I feel like, even though they have like no money to spend, I think that they're going to be on is Roki Sasaki. Just like
that wouldn't cost them much.
Like that is a name to me that I firmly believe that you will see rumors of the Padres with. Like they're going to be connected to Roki Sasaki, and it's just like not hard to put the two together. Like when Preller mentions Roki Sasaki, and we've talked about it on the show during the remembrance service of Peter Seidler this past year, you're like, what? Did you just drop a Roki Sasaki while talking about Peter? And he mentioned like, yeah, we would talk about players and Roki Sasaki and blah, blah. And you're like, okay, yeah, they're going to be in on Roki Sasaki. You're right. It's not going to cost you like an arm and a leg. But guess what? They won't be the only team in on Roki Sasaki. You have the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, like whoever else will be in on Roki Sasaki as well, I feel like. But obviously they're going to try to push for that. But starting pitching, yeah, it's the top player offseason priority for me.
Yeah, I mean, Sasaki would be great, but I won't, I would think would be pretty much a long shot. I look at some of these other Japanese frontline players they've gone after recently, and they've always been the bridesmaid in these situations. I don't see why it would change, truthfully. I mean, they have fully courted players under AJ Preller. They've had all kinds of presentations. They've had Yu Darvish a part of them. They've had Preller speak in Japanese. At the end of the day, Japanese players have not elected to come here in the posting system. I mean, I don't know if that's just coincidence or not, but you look at franchises like the Dodgers, the Giants, the Yankees, to your point. I mean, I'm not holding my breath, is my point. I'm just not holding my breath that he's going to come here. Is it possible? Sure. But is it beyond 10% likely? Probably not.
No, I'm with you. I'm not holding my breath. I'm just saying that he will be a name that you're
100%
obviously see out there. Now, as far as the second need this offseason, when it comes to player and roster moves, I'm gonna count to three, and then you say yours, I'll say mine. Because I don't know if I don't know what you think. Like, because we both agree pitching is number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, pitching is number one. You ready?
This is easy for me.
Easy?
And you're gonna easy, so easy.
All right, 1, 2, 3, left field.
Extend Jackson Merrill. It's not even a question. And you might say, well, why? Hold on, they don't have money. They really won't have money if they don't extend them. They really won't have money if they do not extend them. And they will get themselves in crazy, crazy hot water and crazy issues if Merrill replicates his season. And then you can't even afford, although they will, but then it's going to come at other expenses. So you have to extend Jackson Merrill. You have to extend Jackson Merrill. You're going to say, hold on, they don't have money, John. You just said they don't have money. You want them really not to have money? Go watch Jackson Merrill do it again. And then watch the price go up twofold in the offseason after 2025. You have to extend Jackson Merrill. They tried to do it before he made his major league debut. They have to go back to that well. Left field, they didn't have a left fielder last year, remember?
Yeah, but Profar was always in their back pocket, and you knew that, and we knew that.
Yeah, but he sucked heading into last year. I wasn't thinking he was going to equal Juan Soto's production.
Yeah, but they don't have that like safety net with we can get this guy for $1 million. Unless I'm missing something right now. I mean, it's October 21st. The offseason hasn't even begun yet. As far as
Brandon Lockworth or whatever.
Brandon Lockridge. That dude was on the team for a month, and you never pronounce his name right.
I don't acknowledge him.
I don't even care.
He does not exist to me. I mean, okay. Well, where's your last one? Because then we can discuss more on Merrill / Arise. But you're saying left field. Okay, yeah, it's among a series of priorities. Yeah, they'll have to have a left fielder. But okay, so you say left field,
and then I kind of was torn between this. I had two. They're both very important. Shortstop, an extension for Michael King.
Okay, I like those.
Like the Merrill thing. Look, it's a priority, but if they don't get something done this offseason, he's with the team. He's in the 2026. He's with the team. Michael King is not with the team in 2026 if they don't get something done.
Yeah, but can you imagine what Padres fans will be saying?
I know.
If Jackson Merrill goes rookie of the year and follows it up with another all-star spot and hits 301 with 29 home runs as a 22-year-old, and then he becomes not out of reach. It's just you're going to pay more than you had to pay if you just lock him up in an appropriate manner. It's like you either bet on Jackson Merrill or you bet against him. And I don't understand why anyone within the organization would bet against him. But if you do that, it could be it could be extremely costly. I'm with you on Michael King. I mean, Michael King's a valuable starter. He's going to command a lot of money. We've talked about it. So, all good things have great cost. I mean, King's going to be expensive. Luis Ariz extension would be expensive. Jackson Merrill's not going to come cheap. Jurickson Profar might not come overly cheap, cheaper than the names we've just thrown out there. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for King extension. I think that could be a priority. I'm all for dealing with left field and Jurickson Profar as well. I just think who are you building the organization around? Left field or Jackson Merrill? Who are you building the organization around? Luis Ariz or Jackson Merrill?
Jackson Merrill.
Okay. So deal with it appropriately. If he's the future of the franchise, it should be dealt with as such. I'm not saying give him $340 million. I would never do it. But I would say that if you can get him for 100 now before it's 200 later, I'd get him for 100 now.
Do you think there's any reservations with them getting a contract extension done so soon in his career, thinking about, well, maybe I want to see it happen. Maybe I want to see him back it up.
1,000%. Yes.
And also, we kind of did this with Tatis, and look how that's turned out so far.
Well, this is 1/3 of the Tatis deal, in my opinion, right?
Right. Yeah, right.
Okay. Right. So you're not going 14 years. You're not going near.
You're not going 340.
Yeah. You're not going near 200. Mm-hmm. So this is let's just call it 1/3 of the Tatis deal. It's fair. And do you want to see him do it more? Yes. This is a risk reward calculation. What's riskier? To me, it's riskier to wait it off than to get it done. So that's how I'm looking at it from like a sheer calculus perspective. Are you betting on Jackson Merrill as a cornerstone piece or not? If the answer is yes, and you're the organization, you have to find a way to get this thing done, because my future is Merrill and Tatis. My future isn't Machado and Bogarts. Does that make? I mean, I hate to say it so bluntly. I think Machado and Bogarts could win a World Series here, but you got a better chance of winning a World Series with Toddy and Merrill's future, because it could intersect for the next 10 years of their prime, as opposed to Machado and Bogarts being, 38 years of age.
And here's like the problem, because those two guys, King and Merrill, had such amazing years. Right now, King to me is $100 million pitcher.
Yeah, definitely.
And Merrill this offseason is like between like 120 and $130 million player at this stage of his career. So where are you gonna find that money? How are you gonna make that work? Are you gonna make it work? Can you make it work? Or are you not gonna make it work? Or do you have to sacrifice to make it work? And where do you sacrifice from? Is it
you have to sacrifice?
Is it, we got to trade Luis Ariz and we got to trade Dylan Cease. Like, is that something that would need to happen in order to lock up Michael King long-term and lock up Jackson Merrill long-term? I mean, that would absolutely suck, because they can't afford to I think, trade Dylan Cease next year with the loss of Joe. I mean, the Joe injury is a trickle-down effect that will hurt this team and more than just on the field next year. Like it's like,
which is why I don't think they'll overreact to it. That's why I don't think they'll go out and spend in free agency to address it. I think they'll look at internal options. And I think that, yes, I think that they'll have to make sacrifices to keep Jackson Merrill here long-term, to keep either Dylan Cease or Michael King here long-term. Yes, I think it will be the expense of other players. Hence what I've said since the day the season ended, which is I think Luis Ariz, well, I don't love it either, but when you look at the pecking order of players, becomes quote unquote expendable. I know he's won 3 consecutive batting titles. I also know the metrics say he was a 1.1 WAR player this year that's due to make $15 million next year. He better damn well hit 320 because the year he hits 289, you have an albatross contract on your hand. He's young enough that he is capable of doing it. He's proved it time and time again at 3 different stops. But the year he does not hit, what does he fall back on? Because when Jay Cronenworth doesn't hit, he's got nothing to fall back on. If Luis Ariz didn't hit, he's going to have nothing to fall back on. He's a better hitter than Jay Cronenworth, but he's also a one-tool player, which is hitting for average. And to go give a 5-year, $75 million contract to Luis Ariz is a risky proposition. And I mean, it's not just me saying that. I think people might say, what are you talking about, John? He hit 320 in a Padres uniform. He had a torn thumb ligament. He's also been traded multiple times in his career, and nobody's paid him. Nobody's given him a payday as of yet, including the Padres. Maybe they do. And do you want to pay him what he's going to get in arbitration for 1 year? You want to pay him $15 million for 1 year? Do you necessarily have to have him back? It is, again, do you need to have Ariz back, or do you need to have Michael King long term? Do you need to have Ariz back, or do you need to have Jackson Merrill long term? I'm not saying that it's one or the other, but it could be. If you have to sacrifice, it could be one or the other.
And why these conversations just suck is because of players that are making this much money on this team, like Xander Bogaerts and Jay Cronenworth, who are a net negative when it comes to production and value. And they're making the money that should be given to a Luis Ariz and a Michael King and a Jackson Merrill. Like that's that's what sucks the most. Is I love Jake. Look, he's going to always be remembered here for his Game 4 hit against the Dodgers. No doubt about it. He is a declining player that had an awful second half and an awful September last year, and he's not getting better. And he's making money that, frankly, is kind of going to waste. It's not a lot, but it's going to waste. Xander Bogaerts is worse. He hasn't done anything here. He's eaten up a bunch of money, and he's a declining player. And it's like, you know, if you told me right now you got to pick you got to pick between Xander, Cronenworth, or Ariz, it's not even like a question.
But that's not the question.
I know, but that's the problem. And so with that problem there that they created by themselves, unfortunately, if and when Luis Ariz is traded, you know, that's because they gave big contracts to Cronenworth and Xander already.